On Tech News Today, Germany orders Facebook to drop its real names policy. Amazon calls for special airspace just for drones. And Nokia unveils virtual reality hardware for Hollywood. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, July 29th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Intel. Small business owners can't afford to choose between A or B. If both help your business, you want A and B. With Intel-powered 2-in-1s, you get performance and mobility, power and freedom. That's the power of and. Experience it at smallbusiness.intel.com. And by Prosper. Prosper is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace that connects people who are looking to borrow money with those who have money to lend. Visit prosper.com/twit and receive a $50 Visa gift card when you get a loan. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. My name is Mike Elgin, and our co-anchor today is ZDNet contributing writer Kevin Toffel. Hey, Kevin, how you doing today?
I am exhausted today. 6 hours of driving to New York City and back for a 1-hour Motorola event. So I'm a little out of it today, but we'll see what happens.
It could have been worse, Kevin. It could have been a Samsung event, and they could have had an orchestra playing elevator music. That has happened recently. So count your blessings. Still, that's a nice drive, though, isn't it?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And Motorola did hand out Moto G phones, the new Moto G, which I'll be playing with for the next week.
Nice. Too bad they didn't give you the expensive one, but still, you'll take it. It's kind of like the old Google I/Os where they used to hand out phones like candy. But I think those days are over. Well, why don't we jump right into our top story? Twitter shares plunged 10% this morning in reaction to the company's earnings call yesterday. Twitter reported that they're struggling to gain new users despite having launched several new features designed to make Twitter more appealing. Twitter's interim CEO Jack Dorsey was pretty hard on the company, too, saying that Twitter remains too hard to use. Twitter has about 1/5 the users of Facebook, and in a report published yesterday, ranked 7th in user satisfaction among social networks, well below Pinterest, Google+, and Facebook. On the plus side, Twitter's making lots of money, but that's because each user is seeing more ads, not because more users are seeing the same number of ads. Kevin Toffel, are they going to be able to pull this out of the fire, and should they? In fact, I think that one of the problems here is that everybody compares themselves to Facebook, and that's always going to be a losing proposition. But what do you think about their earnings call?
Well, I agree with you. Facebook is the baseline that all others are judging themselves against. And I'm not sure that in Twitter's case, it's the right baseline to use. I don't necessarily agree with Jack Dorsey in that where he says Twitter is too difficult to use. I don't think that's the problem. Twitter is far more limited. I mean, when you're stuck with 140 characters that you can type, that's easy to do. It's not difficult, and there's plenty of clients that will let you do it. It's just really limiting when you look at Facebook, how they've expanded into video calls and so many other features. You can do so much more on Facebook. And frankly, I find the conversation threads much better on Facebook. It's not always easy to have a conversation on Twitter. So, I don't think they should be aiming for Twitter-like numbers.
You know, the other thing, though, is that I don't think a lot of the users, they're going for mainstream users. I don't think users want to have conversations. They want to follow people. They want to say things. They want to see things. Maybe a quick comment or two. Conversations are, like you say, much better on Facebook, much better on Google+, in my opinion. And the people who want to have substantive conversations are an extreme minority. That's why the conversation-oriented social networks are in the minority. And again, I think Facebook, you can't even compare it anymore. It's so far ahead of everyone else in terms of users, in terms of number of hours spent per day. Nobody can touch Facebook. What scares me about Jack Dorsey's comments yesterday, though, is he was hinting that the solution might be to turn Twitter into a non-reverse chronological feed. In other words, right now, the most recent tweet among the people you follow is at the top, and then when a new one, somebody tweets something else, everything moves down and the new one goes on top. That's reverse chronological. It's linear. I personally think that that's one of the great things about Twitter, but he's talking about changing that and making it non-linear. What do you think about that possibility?
I would not like that change. As a longtime Twitter user, I've been using it since December of 2006, if I recall correctly. And one of the benefits is that it's a real-time live stream in that chronological flow that you had mentioned, Mike. And, I kind of prefer that for Twitter and for the type of things I read on Twitter. Facebook, on the other hand, what they do is they have algorithms that will tweak that news feed to show things out of order based on interest, based on sort of what they want you to see. And that's a whole different type of animal there. And I like it for those and other reasons. But I don't think changing the Twitter to a non-chronological stream is going to help. I think, if anything, that's going to devalue what Twitter actually offers.
I think that's it exactly. I think that Facebook envy may be the undoing of Twitter if they proceed down this path. We've got some more really interesting news for you coming right up. But first, I want to talk about Intel, one of our sponsors today. Intel is the brains behind the coolest category of technology there is right now. Of course, we all know that tablets are declining in popularity. Part of the reason is they're kind of underpowered and they don't do all the things that a laptop can do. But laptops, on the other hand, are kind of, sometimes you don't need a laptop, you just need a tablet. And that's why Intel's 2-in-1s are so powerful. They come from a wide variety of vendors, and they involve the 5th generation Intel Core processor-based laptops, and they come in two kinds. One is the kind where you remove the keyboard, and when you do that, you basically just have a very light tablet, and then you can reattach the keyboard later very quickly and use it as a laptop. The other kind swivels around. They're super convenient. I personally like that kind better because you basically don't have this separate piece. It's all one piece that's never disconnected. And these are very, very powerful. They are as powerful as a laptop and as easy to use as a tablet, and you choose whichever one you want to use when you want to use it, and they're perfect for small businesses, because a lot of the usage that you use in small businesses these days, especially in a retail situation or some sort of manufacturing situation, is going to be using tablets in a tablet mode. But of course, you're going to need to do some serious keyboarding, and you're going to need a keyboard and a tablet. And so this is a perfect way to save lots of money and get all the power and flexibility and ease of use that you need for your small business. Experience the power of and. Visit smallbusiness.intel.com and find out how Intel-powered 2-in-1s can improve your small business. That's smallbusiness.intel.com, and we thank Intel for their support of Tech News Today. Well, in our next story, Facebook has been ordered by a German privacy watchdog to allow pseudonyms. Facebook's real names policy, which has been controversial in the United States and elsewhere, requires that users go by their legal names online. Karen Matusik is the German legal affairs correspondent for Bloomberg and joins us now by phone from Berlin. Welcome to you, Karen.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I appreciate it. It's pretty late there. It's well after 7 p.m., and so I thank you for coming on at this hour. On what basis is this demand being made? Is it just privacy?
It's basically the privacy laws that apply in Germany. It's the privacy laws that are based on European laws and that have been enacted in Germany.
Karen, this has actually come up before with Facebook. If I recall, they had similar requests in the past. How have they managed those requests in the past to use or not use pseudonyms? Because I remember a big brouhaha when they weren't allowing them. So we're kind of flipping back to what they did before.
Sorry, I didn't get that question. Can you
Sure.
say that again?
So how has Facebook handled this in the past? Because this has been an issue in the past.
Yeah, well, in the past, some other German regulators have tried to attack Facebook on that in the past and have asked Facebook to set aside the rules. Facebook has always said, we want clear names, we don't want pseudonyms. And some other regulators have tried to make Facebook change the policy, but they weren't successful because Facebook has always insisted at saying we are only regulated by the Irish data regulation, because in Europe we're based in Ireland, and that's the only rules that apply to us. And they were successful to argue that even in German courts. But with the recent ruling by European top court on Google last year about the right to be forgotten, this approach has changed a bit, and the Hamburg regulator is now trying to capitalize on that.
I'm surprised that scheme worked in Europe. Is that because Ireland is within Europe? Because, I mean, of course, Google and other companies are based outside of Germany, but Germany privacy regulators and French privacy regulators and lots of European privacy regulators, including the EU itself, have said that you have to obey European law, you have to obey German, French law, and so on. What is it about Ireland that enabled Facebook in the past to skirt local European laws? Again, is it because they're in Europe?
Yeah, it's because Facebook has chosen a different approach than Google. Facebook has set up an entity in Ireland, and I think it's a bit like some companies who choose to set up their headquarters in a particular European country because the tax rates are low there. I think Facebook, at least that's what the analysis by some people who say that Facebook deliberately chose Ireland because the regulators there are less strict, and Germany instead has a sort of very strict and high data protection standard and sees everything very critical, and even reads the European laws more strict than maybe the Irish data protection officer does. And Facebook has argued, we are in Ireland, and from Ireland we can, because there's a freedom of movement of services within Europe, we can move our services everywhere else. But we are only regulated by the Irish data regulator, who has looked into the name policy in 2011, and at least Dan has said that it's okay for him. So that's kind of a trick you can use if you want to term it negatively. But it's the application of European rules, and all of this changed, I think, last year when the European Top Court said, this approach can't work if one company is doing business in one. Is also doing business regardless from where it does business. It has to apply the local laws, or the local regulator must have a say. So the Hamburg regulator is now arguing this is applying to him, and he has the power to regulate Facebook. Facebook instead says, look, we are not Google, we are in Ireland, Google is in the US, so this ruling doesn't apply to us. We will have to see how the courts will rule on that issue.
Karen, I've been watching Facebook for years, and one of the things people hate about it is when Facebook changes Facebook. So I'm wondering, because a lot of people like the fact that you can't hide behind a pseudonym or some anonymous name on Facebook. It's an actual identity for many people. What do you think there'll be? Do you think there'll be any backlash from Facebook users once this is allowed?
Yeah, that's basically what Facebook is also arguing. Facebook says, our users, they can trust that when they get friends requests, so they know who they are talking to. I'm not sure that's actually really true in every case. I mean, I know from other people who actually set up a Facebook account not with their real name. I'm not sure how they did it, but they haven't been forced out of Facebook. Maybe it's I'm not sure. Yeah, Facebook users are very diverse. I don't think everybody is using Facebook under the same standard and has the same expectation and the same views of how he wants to communicate. So I'm not sure this would kind of kill the whole business model. I don't think so.
I personally think that Facebook's real names policy is going to be ended globally at some point. As in Germany, in the United States, it's been controversial from a privacy point of view. Specifically, drag queens have taken Facebook to task, and they've been so politically active that they've actually forced apologies and other things from Facebook, some concessions to a certain extent. There have been other cases where people have forced Facebook to change what they're doing, but there's a discriminatory aspect in the United States as well, where the enforcement of real names goes into effect. I wrote about this last week. Actually, I created a fake name on Facebook using a very English-sounding name. It was a European name of European origin. And Facebook doesn't challenge that. Whether it's fake or real, they don't care. If it's Bob Smith or Jim Jones or something like that, they would say, okay, that sounds great. But if you have a name that's of a racial minority or an ethnic group or a foreign-sounding name, they'll challenge that. And there's been a problem in the United States with Native Americans. There's a person named Lance Brown Eyes who was not allowed to use that name. So he changed it to Lance Brown, and they accepted that. A woman named Dana Lonehill was challenged. She had to send copies of her passport, her driver's license, all these things. They didn't accept that. She had to send more. She had to send bills with her address on it and all this kind of stuff. And finally they said, oh, okay, yeah, I guess so. But again, in both of those cases, there was a lawsuit in the first case and press coverage on the second case. So basically what Facebook does is they enforce this in a bigoted kind of way. I don't think it's based on bigotry. I just think that it's based on a desire to save money. They have a different process for people based on how normal their name sounds to Facebook. So it's very problematic. And I'm surprised they haven't been dragged before Congress by one of our grandstanding congressmen yet. I think it's coming, but I definitely think that this policy is on its way out. Karen, I want to thank you for coming on the show so late. I know you're very busy and you were driving around and you're calling in by phone. I really appreciate it. Karen Matusik is at Bloomberg.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at @KMatusik. Thank you so much for joining us today, Karen.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Intel and Micron say they've collaborated on a new kind of memory chip that are up to 1,000 times faster than the chips currently used by mobile devices, while storing 10 times more data than DRAM chips. The technology is called 3D XPoint, and full disclosure, Intel is a sponsor of this episode of TNT. Don Clark is a technology writer for the Wall Street Journal and joins us now to talk about this. Welcome to you, Don Clark.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you. So great to have you on the show now for the second time. How is 3D XPoint technology different from what's widely used today?
Well, it's different in several ways. Intel and Micron didn't disclose everything there is to tell about this. They don't want competitors to catch up. But basically, people have been searching for years for essentially a universal kind of memory. There's many kinds of memory in systems used. There's DRAMs, you mentioned. There's flash memory, which is the two biggest markets. But there's all kinds of others, and people have been searching for years for basically one kind of chip that could rule them all, so to speak. And Micron and Intel say this new technology basically is 1,000 times faster than NAND flash and 10 times the density of DRAM. So it could really cover both bases in some ways. But they're dancing kind of a delicate dance here because Micron makes both DRAMs and NAND. Intel makes NAND. So they don't really want to say it's a replacement. They want to basically say it's a new category altogether, essentially something between NAND and DRAM that will speed up many kinds of applications.
So Don, this news about the technology, it's not really something they said it's an experiment or anything like that. They have an actual working product, if I read correctly. And do we know when that may actually be in devices and what type of devices may use it?
Well, basically, they have a big factory in Utah, Lehi, Utah, and they are starting to process wafers there to essentially ship sample chips to system makers to start out. And then next year, they'll be in full production. Each company is going to basically sell their own products based on the output of that factory. And there's a lot of different places this could evolve. It could go any place from your smartphone to your wearable to your server system. And I have the feeling that a lot of people are thinking that the first application will probably be in servers because those folks will, especially like your Googles and Facebooks, they have the money to spend the nth amount of capital on boosting the performance of their data centers, and they want to put as much of the stuff that they need to access rapidly into chips as opposed to something like disk drives. So it's very likely that will be the first application. There's a couple of gotchas. Basically, the interfaces that hook up SSDs and basically the connections, the PCIe Express, et cetera, isn't as fast as this new kind of chip. So it's going to take a little while for people to work the best way to essentially interconnect these new chips in systems.
Now, there's an interesting dynamic going on behind the scenes, which is that, first of all, Intel and Micron are pretty cozy with each other. They kind of divide and conquer the chip world to a certain extent. Micron might be about to be acquired by a Chinese company, and I understand that Intel might be is an investor of some kind in that Chinese company. Can you talk about the potential acquisition there?
Well, it's a very sketchy kind of a thing because this company, Tsinghua, is a government-owned company. Intel owns about 20% of it, I believe, at least $1.5 billion invested in it. The thing is, they came out with this offer that is basically quite low priced. And so Micron doesn't really have to respond to it at this level. Almost everybody thinks that Micron, it would be blocked by the U.S. government. So there was kind of a trial balloon seems to have gone up here. A lot of negative signs that the government would never allow it to happen. So it's kind of just sitting there at the moment. It kind of it needs some sort of formal step up in price or something to really make it a real thing. At the moment, Micron hasn't said a word about it, essentially, and so it's kind of hanging there in the ether at the moment until basically this Chinese company comes out with sort of a more formal offer and probably boosts the price quite a bit, so it's taken seriously.
Hey, Don, one last question about the technology itself, and it's probably a little too early to say, but have we heard anything about any cost for this, the price of it? Because I know consumers are tired of paying, $100 every time they need to get a phone or a tablet with double the memory and so on. And the handset makers, device makers have been making tons of profit off those kind of options. So has there been any talk about the price of it? Might this actually save us some money in the long run?
Well, don't get me started on the way these handset makers charge for NAND flash. That has nothing to do with the cost of the technology and all to do with their market position. But all we can really talk about is the cost of making it at the moment, not the price of it. But basically, on a per bit of storage basis, NAND is the cheapest by far. And DRAM is the most expensive and the fastest, but it's volatile. The data is lost when the power is off. So this has the non-volatility of NAND, which is great. It's basically on a per bit basis. They think the price will be the cost of production, whatever, will be basically between DRAM and NAND. We don't know exactly where, but it will be. I think it's going to be closer to NAND in pricing. But basically, all these companies have a vested interest not to really obsolete either of the existing technologies. They want to make a third market, essentially, or another memory market. So I think it's going to be priced essentially between those things. And, it could have some good impacts, particularly on market things like voice recognition, pattern recognition, putting that data in the device and not having to go to the cloud to get answers is kind of one of the dreams of this technology.
All right. Well, you can catch up with Don Clark at WSJ.com and on Twitter at DONAL888. Thank you so much for joining us today, Don.
Sure. My pleasure.
Amazon is proposing new flight rules for delivery drones that would carve out special airspace just for commercial quadcopters. Ryan Mack writes about drones and other technology for Forbes and joins us now to talk about it. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. Now, can you describe what Amazon is proposing here exactly?
Sure. So Amazon is just making a proposal yesterday at a conference. So their head of Amazon Prime Air, this guy named Gur Kimchi, came out on stage and proposed, among other things, this kind of separation of airspace under 500 feet. So if you look at that graphic there, the 400 to 500 feet above the ground is kind of a no-fly zone. Anywhere from 200 to 400 feet will be this kind of high-speed transit area, and the ground to 200 feet above the ground is going to be this kind of low-speed, localized traffic area where you can have anyone from any kind of drone doing crop surveillance or kind of mapping of buildings, that kind of activity, kind of low-speed stuff.
Ryan, the FAA has been looking at this, obviously, because you've got not commercial, but consumer drones as well. How is what Amazon is proposing different from what the FAA wants to do? Is it very similar, or are we going to see some compromises down the line?
Sure. So the FAA hasn't yet released its final rules on the commercial operations of drones. So right now, anyone that needs or that wants to use a drone for commercial operations has to get this thing called a 333 exemption, which is kind of a very slow process to go through. It's a case-by-case basis. So the FAA people are waiting on the FAA to kind of release final rules, and that could happen in 2016. So what Amazon is trying to do is push forward a kind of faster timeline, something that will happen a lot sooner than what the FAA is proposing right now.
Now, Ryan, this so far makes a lot of sense to me. The airspace that they're carving up here is not airspace that the FAA really deals with, other than to prohibit airplanes from going there. Basically, it's below 500 feet. And again, it makes a lot of sense. The airspace rules are global. So two-part question here. First of all, are they proposing this for the world or just the United States? And the second part is, Is the FAA going to be involved in the traffic of drones, or will this be another agency that deals with it, or will it all be automated?
Sure. So the first part of the question, I think right now it's just for the U.S. Different countries have their own rules governing drones. I mean, places like Australia are allowing for drone operations in many ways and are a lot more forward-thinking than the U.S. So this is only right now applies to the U.S. With regards to the other parts of the question, it's not clear who's going to oversee the kind of air traffic control of drones. Amazon is working right now with NASA and this kind of air traffic management task force to put together these kinds of proposals. And the FAA is also working with them as well. But it's not clear who's going to oversee this kind of traffic control when it does happen.
Ryan, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I do own a drone, and I thought I couldn't fly it above 400 feet as it stands right now. So as I look back at that graphic, I'm trying to figure out, where the heck does my drone go? Where can it be? I mean, I can envision people using their own drones to, knock around Amazon drones and such. So do we know how that all fits in?
So you're you'd be classified as a hobbyist right now. If you're flying I'm assuming you have a Phantom of some type or another type of drone. And you'd be kind of confined to the rules that also govern model airplanes. So you're required to fly under 400 feet. And that's basically kind of the only major air traffic restriction for you. It's not clear how the hobbyists fit into Amazon's plans, but this is, again, only for commercial operations of drones, what they're proposing.
I want to know how high I can fly my drone that has a loaded gun attached to it. I wonder what the altitude limit is on that. Ryan Mack writes at Forbes.com. You can follow him on Twitter at rmac18. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, guys.
Microsoft launched the PC version of Windows 10 today for some users. Beta testers will get it, and those running Windows 7 or Windows 8 who pre-ordered Windows 10 might get it today. If they do, it'll be a free upgrade. Everyone else needs to wait until at least August. Also, the phone, Xbox, and HoloLens versions of Windows 10 won't be ready until later this year at the earliest. Kevin Toffel, I'm confused about this. It's software. Why are they having a phased rollout? It's not like they're shipping boxes. Or they are shipping boxes, maybe.
No, I mean, there's multiple ways to get this, but the Windows insiders, the people who sign up for the beta, they're getting first priority, and I don't really have a major problem with that. I mean, those are people who invested their time and effort to test the system out for Microsoft and get first access and so on. So it's not. I don't think it's a huge issue.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all the hoopla about it, and then people, the average Joe will go rushing to get it, and they won't be able to. So it's kind of weird. It's related to another issue that Microsoft has, which is they can't do things clearly. Nobody knows how much it costs. Nobody knows which version they should get. Nobody knows when it's shipping. They just generate confusion out of nothing. And they're like the only company left that does that sort of thing. Everybody else is so clear about these kinds of things. Here's when it ships. Here's the price. Here's where to get it. It's like, I don't understand why Microsoft can't do that.
Well, this is a big change for Microsoft in general. I mean, this is their whole software as a service model. And I think, Mike, the challenge they have is they have, over 1 billion legacy users of Windows that have various versions, and who can update, who can't. And they've got different SKUs or models. They had the Home Edition, Pro Edition. I mean, I remember a couple years back when there were 6, 8 different editions of Windows. Some you couldn't even buy. They were for OEMs. And it's just crazy. But I think they're trying to clarify, and they're doing a better job of it, but there's still some improvement they need to do.
Well, I have friends who are in the business of writing about and reporting on Windows, and Microsoft keeps them busy, I can assure you, chasing down all the facts. It's not always easy. Well, Nokia yesterday unveiled a high-end camera for filming virtual reality video. It's called the Ozo, or Ozo. I'm not really even sure how to say it. The camera is round and about the size of a cantaloupe. It weighs about 6 pounds, and its 8 optical sensors capture 360-degree high-resolution video, and an array of microphones built in record the audio from where it's coming from in the shot. So, for example, if something's going on behind you, you will hear it behind you. Ozo enables movie directors to watch what's being shot while it's recording in real time. That's one of its biggest benefits. It gives you a low-res version. Of course, it can't render a high-res version in real time. That would be impossible with today's technology. The device is now in pre-production phase. The final launch and details, like the price, it's going to be expensive, will come later. Kevin Toffel, do you think this is a good business for Intel? I mean, for Nokia?
But right now, I mean, Nokia's got to find new business lines, so I think it's a worthy attempt. This is not what I expected. We were talking or speculating a week or two ago about this. Was it going to be VR goggles? We figured it would have something to do with audio, augmented reality or virtual reality. I didn't expect a rounded camera like this. And without the price, it's really hard to say who it's geared for right now. I don't think you're going to see this on the shelf at Best Buy for $199. So I think they're trying to get into this industry, which is growing, not very quickly. It's taking a while for VR to get started. But I think they're trying to get in early with something unique. And it'd be interesting to see what kind of, who buys it and what they use it for and so on. Again, I think a lot has to do with the price.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And of course, they announced this in LA and Hollywood, and they're really targeting Hollywood. And so that will be an interesting business model for them. But like you say, they got to do something for a living. Well, we got some more news coming right up, but first, let's talk about Prosper. Let's talk about raising money. You know, Prosper is America's first peer-to-peer lending marketplace. They invented the category, and they are the leader in that category. They facilitate huge amounts of loans, 2 million members, $4 billion borrowed, and 250,000 people have been empowered by Prosper. This is a fantastic way where you can borrow up to $35,000 in as few as 5 days and use the money for just about anything you desire. You can pay off high-rate credit cards, fix up your house, create a small business. Here's an idea. All these companies are coming out with these great virtual reality cameras. You know, when Hollywood moved from silent pictures to the film industry, the silent picture companies, for the most part, died off. They couldn't adjust. There was a huge changing of the guards, and tiny startups that were doing talkies took over the industry, and those are the companies, for the most part, that are dominating Hollywood now. There's probably going to be another changing of the guard. So startups that do virtual reality well are probably going to replace the big Hollywood studios that exist today. If you want to get into this business, or if you want to get a drone and do some sort of high-end video, there's so much technology around video production, around movie making, and so on, and it's such an exciting area that a loan from Prosper is one way to get your business off the ground and buy some of this high-end equipment. That's one of the interesting things about this category of business, which is that if you've got the highest resolution, highest quality video, you're going to win. Just like Twitter, we have super high resolution video. That's why we're the best source of, you know, podcasting, netcasting, whatever you want to call it. You got to get the high-end equipment, but that's expensive. With a loan from Prosper, you can get into some sort of new generation, next generation video production company with the highest end product. Again, so many people have had their dreams come true with Prosper. They've just gone there, set up an account, got some investment from somebody who want to invest in them and their dream, and they made it happen, and you can too. For a limited time, Prosper is offering Twit viewers a $50 Visa gift card with your low-interest loan. You can get up to $35,000 in your account in as few as 5 days and a $50 Visa gift card. Just go to prosper.com/twit for this special offer just for Twit viewers and listeners. In the Human Resources Department, Dropbox has hired Todd Jackson as VP of Product. Now, who the heck is Todd Jackson? Jackson was formerly with Google, Facebook, and Twitter. While at Twitter, he was in charge of the timeline product. At Facebook, he ran both photos and the news feed. And at Google, he was in charge of Gmail. Kevin Toffel, this guy looks like a teenager, and he's done so many amazing things in technology.
He has, and this is a really good get for Dropbox. You know, a lot of people kind of dismiss Dropbox against the larger players in the cloud these days, thinking, oh, it's just a little consumer-based company, and they've got an app on your phone, and they give you a 50 meg free or whatever it is these days. This is really good. Todd Jackson has a good pedigree. He's done some great things at some major companies, and I'm curious to see what he does to either change or expand Dropbox as the VP of product. It'll be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, in news you can use, Google used the Richie Valens song La Bamba in a new YouTube video this morning to demonstrate its ability to translate signs and words in real time via the Google Translate app. The technology was acquired along with a company called Quest Visual, which used to make the WordLens app. When I used WordLens while living in Europe, it could translate 3 or 4 languages, Spanish, Italian, and so on. Google today announced that Translate can now handle 27 languages via its visual translation feature, 32 via voice, and 37 languages through photos. Here comes the La Bamba video.
Okay, here we go.
And this is amazing technology, which is demonstrated very nice in this video.
1, 2, 1, 2.
What's great about this technology is that not only translates the words on a sign, but it retains the typography, colors, and everything. It also demonstrates how Spanish language lyrics just don't translate well into English. They're just weird. Sound great in Spanish, according to my wife who speaks Spanish. Never knew it said, "I'm not a sailor."
Up, down, up.
This is all at the Google campus. They have those bicycles made famous by the internship or whatever it's called. Now they're showing off various languages.
That's such a great app.
Isn't it? Isn't it? And there's a Google Glass version too, which is just amazing. Incredible. I can't believe they expanded it to so many languages. It's just such a great thing. And of course, you know, this is not only something that can translate signs, as they were showing, you know, big letters, but I've used it to translate menus, things like that. I just absolutely love this app. It's one of the most useful things I've ever used. And it's kind of cool that Google bought it too. Well, our TNT fan of the day is John Ray in Bass Lake, California, who is formerly an Atari Games Engineering Director in Silicon Valley. He sent us this picture via email to tnt@twit.tv, and he said he normally listens to Tech News Today while kayaking in the early morning on the beautiful Bass Lake near Yosemite, California. However, with the current willow fire nearby, it's too smoky in the morning, and so here he was yesterday evening in his kayak listening to TNT and watching the Air Force attack the willow fire in the background. See all that smoke in the background? That is California on fire. He says, thanks for a great show, and hopefully the fire will be contained soon, and we echo those sentiments and thank him for that picture. Very cool. Guy used to be a major, he used to be kind of a big deal at Atari. He's got a whole bunch of games under his belt. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup or your forest fire and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. We thank him for sending that. Kevin Toffel, what are you working on these days, and when are we going to be able to read it?
I am, first of all, catching up on my sleep after yesterday's Motorola event. But over the next couple days, like I said, I'll be using this Moto G. I wish they'd given me the Moto X, but that's not ready yet, coming out in September. This guy you can actually order right now online. Starts at $179. This is the 229 version. So it's got 2 gig of RAM and 16 gig of memory. And Mike, you've used a Nexus 6 before. This has the exact same camera sensor as the Nexus 6 at this price.
Wow, that's amazing. The price is just incredible. And of course, some of the, I don't think it's that version, but the higher end Moto X Pure Edition, I believe, is going to have all kinds of wacky sort of plates on the back, including possibly denim, mother of pearl, and a whole bunch of other weird things. Would you get a phone with denim on the back?
I've done the leather back on the last Moto X, so I could see denim.
Yeah, I'd go with denim if it actually came with a pocket or something as well. So, all right. Well, Kevin Toffel is Kevin C. Toffel on Twitter. You can follow him there, and I recommend it highly. Kevin, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for having me. All right. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on your favorite podcast app or choose some other way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. If you'd like to help us grow our audience, here's how you can do it. Just post a link to twit.tv/TNT on your favorite social networking site, tag 3 friends, and recommend that they subscribe. You can subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mike Elgin. Also, don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every weeknight. And that is the Tech News Today. The show is produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.